Hello friends, welcome back for another part of our walkthrough of Oxygen Not Included's base game. We're at cycle 100, and yeah, come a good ways. Base is looking pretty good. Show you what we were working on last time, which is our food area. So all of the sinks are hooked up. I did change the sinks so that they'll only be used when the duplicates are running to the left. We will get some duplicates coming in here in just a minute so that we can see how this works. But the idea is when they pass through this room, they will get the buff for going through a nature reserve. They'll wash their hands, they'll grab food from this area. They can reach between these tiles without getting wet or disturbing anything here. Then they'll come up here and eat, and then they will leave out this door. So it's kind of just a one-way loop to control traffic. Guess we'll keep an eye on this for just a bit. The other things that I've done in the meantime is set up a refrigerator for storing uncooked food. Here come those duplicates, by the way. Running up here, it looks like they grabbed food from somewhere else. They might have grabbed it from it sitting on the ground before it got shipped somewhere, so that can always happen occasionally. But now that the barbecue is coming in, it's being shipped up into this area and stored in this refrigerator. This area down here is just going to be for uncooked ingredients, so raw bristleberries, lettuce, meal lice, meat, mushrooms, pacu fillets, that kind of stuff. The cooked stuff is just going to get shipped back out, sent into this area to be sorted, which you can see it sitting on the floor right now. Just got picked up into the other one, and it's being passed into this room, which is going to go in the fridge so it can be stored. So this whole area is up and running, and our morale ceilings have risen quite a bit. At this point, most of your duplicates should be sitting around 20 or more. Sometimes they'll drift down under 20 if it's been a little while since they've eaten or done something. I've noticed that those buffs sometimes run off before the whole day is over, but they should be able to wake up and get back to work and get all that stuff taken care of before it really becomes an issue stress-wise. So that should raise you up. As you're assigning your skills, you probably wouldn't want to exceed 20 with any of them, but you can keep track of what everybody is at. The max, it looks like Ruby's at 34. The lowest looks like 13 for Ren, but they will rise up and they will fluctuate a little bit as they eat or eat different types of food or get their buffs from different places and whatnot. So as we get everybody spec'd out, I will like to get them at least to 2 on both digging and construction, because that's going to be a constant ongoing thing as we expand our base. The other things are probably going to be in carrying, suit wearing. You can double up your strength by getting some of the plumbing skills, or you can also get ranching if you want to help out with that. One person eventually is going to need to be in this art track. I usually will not put anybody in this medical care track, by the way, so yeah. That's about how you can spec them out, but eventually you'll get to a point where you're not getting that much more by continuing to up their morale, so this is pretty close to the max. We will give them better rooms and a little bit better decor at some point, but it's not that big of a deal. Most of your duplicates should be able to still spend all their skills that they're getting coming in here, so I'll just assign a handful of them right now. So yeah, everybody is still totally fine and underneath the thresholds that are set, so should be totally fine. So yeah, got all that stuff done from last time. Let's review a couple of other things that have been going on. One of which is I did get into this other ice biome that we talked about, but the food is still languishing quite a bit. All these ice biomes are quite poor compared to some I've seen on other maps. So 3 small ones basically makes up about 1 medium one. You usually will find larger ones than this, which is part of the reason why I wanted to select this map, to basically say, like, this is still viable even if you're not finding the greatest ice biomes. To counteract this, I finally did cave and get into this other one. I'm getting in there right now. I'm just setting up fire poles so my duplicates can travel back and forth faster because this is so far away. We will eventually get transit tubes to help out, or you can set up your shipping to ship this stuff out automatically after it's harvested, but your duplicates still have to run out here to harvest it anyway, so it's not that big of a deal, especially for completely renewable and cheap food for the long stages of the game, so not too worried about it. Alright, the other thing is going to be a lot of water management is going to start being important. I did hollow out a bunch of stuff down here to make a new polluted water pit. I do want to continue to digger downward by expanding this column downward, but there's a whole bunch of water and stuff in the way too, so I'm trying to just kind of move it off to the side. So that's going to be the plan with that, and we'll continue to dig downward. The last thing that we really need to stabilize as far as like early game type of stuff is our water. Our water, we're still relying on the pits that basically spawn to start the game. And I've been using my water quite aggressively on purpose to prove out that even semi-wastefully using the water, you still should have enough to carry you through these early parts of the game. So what I'm going to do to start getting our water management more finalized is I'm going to set up an area that just has a man-made pit kind of over here, because we will eventually run out of these natural spots. We're going to need a place for our water to replenish and collect over time. So I'm going to set up a pit that looks like this. I'm going to make the bottom too thick, by the way. If you only make it one, a lot of times you can get the tiles breaking. You can use airflow tiles to prevent that, but metal is quite a rare resource, especially when you have a lot of shipping up, so I don't want to use metal for this if I don't have to. So you want to just create something like this. I'll put the top on as well, which is going to be the buildings that we need to basically clean other types of water that we might find. Also note that your renewable source of water is going to be in one of these geysers on the map somewhere. The stuff that we found so far has not been very useful. So this is an infectious polluted oxygen vent. This is a hydrogen vent, which is really good, but not useful right now. We will get it in just a little bit. I have not really found any other things for water. If I do, then I will be able to get those. This is a copper volcano, by the way. But once I do find another source of water, I can start using that to pump into this system and to basically use as my base as water for watering my bristle blossoms and eventually for oxygen production. But I can't really start doing that heavily until I have a renewable source. So I need to continue to explore around the map and search for that, which is why I'm trying to dig in all directions still. I've dug all the way up here so I can see as much as I can up here. I have not found anything useful. Dug all the way to the right, still haven't really found anything useful. All the way to the left, same thing. So it's got to be somewhere down here or somewhere up here that it's going to be really useful. So when I do find that, that'll kind of be the last step for making sure that we have consistently available water. I'm going to make our second layer of water management stuff here, by the way. And then what I'm going to do to help conserve power is I'm going to drop a whole bunch of liquid reservoirs. And by the way, I can't overstate how much I've been digging. I only am available, or rather able to expand and build out some of my stuff like this because I'm expanding very aggressively. And there's no reason not to, because there's resources out there that are going to help you progress through the game. So I would really try not to just stay in one place, which can be kind of a trap of newer players as well. So if I set up something like this, I will also set up a pump to justify us having this big space. The idea is I would like my water to flow in and out of these reservoirs because them flowing in and out of reservoirs is free in terms of power. Using a pump does require power, so if I don't have to do that, then I won't. So for these containers, I'm going to want to run a pipe that goes through like this, and then a pipe that comes out and through my pump like that. If you set it up exactly this way, in the sense that your pipes are both originating from the same side, that will make it so that we will fill up all of these tanks in order and drain them all in order, kind of like a big like progress meter almost, so that I can tell how much water I have at all times. I can also use this to set up some automation if I need to set alerts for myself of being like, hey, your water's low, like you're starting to run out. So if, say for example, this tank starts to run out, I could put this on some kind of notifier to say, hey, your water's low. You might really want to pay attention to that now. So I'm going to do something like that. That's something I'm going to definitely encourage throughout this. Now, anything that's providing new water to this system, you just want to hook into the line that is going into all of your tanks. The way that this is going to work is the tank that's going to be drawn from first is the one that's furthest away from the point where it's exiting. This is set up this way so that the pump is turned on very last. Your pump will only need to run if your tanks are totally empty. So ideally this will be a no power type of setup and it'll only use power in an emergency. So that should be pretty handy. I'm going to hook this up to my normal water system so that any water pockets that we have out on the map will be pumped into here. And then I will just pump it back out into things that are actually needed. So once this all gets set up, we can do that. Another thing you might be hitting here pretty soon is we only had one liquid reservoir for all of our bathrooms and sinks, and you may have hit this already. If you did, this would be the time to start draining this into your other system. So I'm going to just disconnect it from here for the time being, and then I will connect any excess that runs off over to some new buildings that are just going to be to filter my polluted water. So I could set up something kind of like this. Whoops. Rotation made it move. So that's going to be for any polluted water that I get. For any salt water that I get, if I happen to find like a saltwater geyser or something like that, I can run it through these desalinators. So I'm going to set them up kind of like that. Then with your bathrooms, when I have water that I need to be treated, it can run right back into the same system and down into these tanks. So the only reason that this works, by the way, actually I could just have it go straight down. We might as well not have it go all the way over. The only reason why this works, and you might be thinking like, wait, we're going to have water that's coming from our bathrooms into our normal water system and then back out to like water plants and go into sinks and stuff like that. But yeah, there's no downside to doing that. Intuitively, it would make sense. So this is like a... It's probably as designed, but it doesn't feel right intuitively. But still, if you can get away with it, we don't necessarily need to purify this water if there's nothing that it's being used for that will hurt my duplicants. My duplicants, only reason that they would be exposed to this is if I'm making food using water, which is already a bad idea to begin with. Those are really low quality and it's a big waste of water. Or if they're drinking water through something like a water cooler, which I have disabled them from using. So there's no way that these duplicants are going to be consuming this polluted water, or not polluted water, but like germy water. So I don't need to spend any energy trying to decontaminate this, and I can send the water that's from my bathroom runoff straight into this without any real consequence. So because of that, I'm going to start sending my bathroom water over here. Send it over like that, and just into these two. This is also another opportunity for us to use shipping to make this a little bit more straightforward. So I can just set up one auto sweeper here to deal with those two things. This is going to need to be loaded with sand on a regular basis, so I can send sand to this conveyor receptacle. This is also going to be another thing, like we might want to distribute our sand to a bunch of different places, so there's not reason to drop it all on the ground right here. And then if any polluted dirt is produced, I could ship it out of here as well, and maybe like I could also just, you know, deconstruct this and put my polluted dirt receptacles here so I don't have to really move it that far. So maybe I'll just do something like that instead. There's no reason to have it go through all my shipping lines and gas off and make a mess if we don't need to. So I could change this up just so that these are for polluted dirt, and then I could have a auto sweeper that grabs it and moves it for me. Might have to readjust this positioning a little bit, but I think you kind of get the point. Then I can build my desalinators a little bit over to the side and not be so in the way of everything else that's going on. Maybe something like this. Sure. So once we have that, our bathrooms are going to start getting backed up just a little bit, but once everything is up and running, we should be good to go. You'll also want to be aware that this is going to take quite a bit of power. This is going to be one of those things where we're eventually going to switch on this conductive wire, but for right now, we might need to run a couple of extra transformers up here to power all this stuff. So you can always just grab a new power transformer by just connecting it to your main line. I'm sure you probably had to do this a couple times by now. Do something like this. Just connect this up to its own dedicated line. These lines are going to get a little bit messy over time. Game lagged and made me place it there. These are going to get a little bit messy over time, but when we start getting our conductive wire ready to go, it will not be nearly as bad. Since we also have this other pool of water over here, I could start setting that up and getting this pumped into my system as well. But yeah, this should all flow pretty nicely. I will also want to reconnect my bathrooms to the same line. So it's connected to my sinks and stuff too. It is coming out of this tank for the time being, so I could run this tank back and put it into my network if I wanted to. There's a couple of ways we could do this. I think I probably will do that. So let's just go ahead and disconnect all this and have this flowing up to here. The weird quirk about these tanks is you will need something that's like pushing the water through. So something silly like a liquid bridge that's connected up to it will push all the water out. That's why there's not anything that's going back into these bathrooms and stuff right now. So now that we have this all set up, my duplicants will have to load this manually. I'll deal with all the shipping later here in just a bit. don't need to hook all that stuff up right now. But that's the basics of water management. I will get all this water pumped out, I'll be able to clean it up, and then we will have a collection area for this right now. That doesn't immediately solve our problem, so in the meantime, we're really going to want to be digging around and looking for another water source via one of these geysers that we could find that's buried behind debris like this. We'll cover that when we get there. It may be a little while, because sometimes you'll get maps that spawn with these things really far away, so you have to be aggressive about this. If you can't find anything in time, you can start purifying some of this polluted water, or find other places around the map to get it. Like there was just a pocket of water right here that I could introduce to my network as well. So those are things you definitely want to look out for. The only thing to be careful of is temperature of water. Water temperature is going to be a big problem for your blossoms in particular, because it can only handle up to about 30 C, and a lot of the polluted water is sitting right on the edge of that or is slightly hotter. So you want to be careful about that temperature problem. And temperature problems are going to be an issue in the long term anyway, which is why I'm just going to segue this directly into the next thing we're going to be talking about in the next part, which is just going to come up immediately after this, which is some kind of like early game cooling solution, a temp solution that's going to be pretty low tech to keep your base cool in places that it might be overheating. So like something like this might be getting a little bit hot too, but we're still in decent shape, and at minimum we need to have something available just to cool our food, just in case that becomes a problem. So we'll talk about that in the next video here in just a minute. I'll be right back.